Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to Unleash Your Light. I have a super special show today, you guys. I'm so excited. I have a very special guest. So let's bring her in right now.
Hello, hello.
Let's see. Let's see. Hi.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Amy is here in the broadcast this morning. Thank you so much. Please share out if you're joining us. Welcome to Unleash Your Light. This is the fabulous, amazing Brana. Say your last name for me, please, so I don't butcher it.
Mijatovic.
Mijatovic. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Brana Mijatovic. And I know Brana here locally where we are at. And she's absolutely fascinating, amazing, knowledgeable. And I am going to let Brana on that side introduce herself to all of you lovely people.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. Well, Lee and I met really recently, about, I would say, 6 months ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely loved your personality and just the way you are and just the way you talk about things as well. And so we were talking about different things, and then we decided to do a show together. And one of the reasons for that is because Lee talks about energy in a certain way, and I talk about energy in a slightly different way. So we thought we would give you that combined perspective. And those of you who don't know me, I work with energy, astrology, and crystals as well, crystal frequencies. And I post a lot on my Facebook page about daily happenings. And so today we're going to talk about two big events that are not really events, but energetic happenings, so to speak. And hopefully, you after this talk, you will get some sense of how to work with those energies so that you can help yourselves. Because while we can work on ourselves every single day, when we understand what energies are contributing to how we are feeling each day, this can make it easier for us, number one, to know what to do, and number two, to actually be kinder to ourselves when there are days, such as, for instance, today, that this may be harder for some people. So I
Yeah.
will explain why, and also I will explain where you can look for that. So that, well, first of all, you can follow what I post on my page, and it's just my name. And Lee has posted the link to my Facebook, so you can find some of the posts there already. But I will give you a little bit more as we go along. So
Excellent.
we are going to start with the new moon and the new moon energies. So I will assume that most of you do not know anything about the new moon, even though
I
many of you
don't.
might. So I want to kind of give you a brief summary of what that is in terms of physics, in terms of astronomy, and in terms of astrology, and then also how it all combines energetically. Sounds good?
Perfect.
Okay. And then after that, we're going to be talking about the geomagnetics of the Earth and how that influences us. So that will be a separate topic.
Mm-hmm.
So I have written a few things so that I do have a full, otherwise I could go on forever for about just the new moon, but we do want to keep this concise and to the point. So in general, the new moon is a time for new beginnings, a time for a reset, and a time for planting seeds. It happens every single month, just like the full moon happens every single month. And it has been significant for many reasons. It is always featured, for instance, in the Farmer's Almanac, because Farmer's Almanac, first of all, is an American periodical that has been in publication since 1818. And this is something that farmers use to plant their crops. And according to a particular moon phase, there are certain plants that grow better when they are actually planted during that phase. So you can
Mm-hmm.
already see that in the United States, this has been recognized officially, right, and has been useful for farmers since at least 1818. But those of you who are interested in this topic may already know that this has been something that ancient civilizations have really paid attention to. And even the Christian church has been following that as well. which you can see if you go to any of the European churches, well, some of the bigger European churches in France, in Italy, and different other countries, where you will see the zodiac signs being represented, and most specifically connected to the seasons. And then there is a much bigger story. As you can see, I can go about that as well. But let's go back to the moon. So what is then the new moon? When we say the new moon, what it actually is. So this is the invisible phase of the moon, when the sun and the moon are aligned in a particular way. And so that way actually also increases the gravitational pull on us on Earth. And this is why a lot of people have really strong sensations during the time of the new moon. Most people are familiar with the full moon because it is obvious. You look in the sky and there it is. But during the new moon, there is absolutely no light, so zero visibility. And that is because the sun and the earth are on the opposite sides of the moon. So that the moon, from our perspective, is not illuminated. So that's why we cannot see it, right? So in astrology, the new moon means coming together of the sun and the moon, coming together, coming very close together. And this coming together is known as conjunction. So they're very, very close together, which means that both the energies of the sun and the energy of the moon are emphasized. Each month, this new moon, or this connection between the sun and the moon, happens in a different sign, in a different zodiac sign. So this month, today specifically, actually the new moon was exact last night at 10:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time. But the effect of the new moon is actually most important the next day and in the next 2 weeks. And so this new moon was in Taurus, and it is still in Taurus. The energy is still there. And this gives a specific theme to this energy.
Yeah.
So,
Taurus yes. is one of those signs that I hear and I go, oh God.
Tell me why?
The Taurus people that I've known have been incredibly stubborn and single-minded. And depending on who they were, that was not always a positive thing. But I can see how if someone had that determination based on a positive aspect of their life, that it could be good. So you tell me what the Taurus moon does, because I'd like to know the actual thing, not just like what I picked up from people that I know.
Yeah. Well, with each zodiac sign, what we need to understand, first of all, is that when we say that somebody's a Taurus, that means their sun is in Taurus.
Right.
And sun, even though it is very important, it is not the only player in the chart. So
I just recently learned that. I've never been a huge into astrology. I'm a Cancer. I was born in July. So it always just kind of fit. Yes, I'm emotional. Yes, I'm a homebody, blah, blah, blah. I never even knew anything about the rising sign at all. And so I went ahead and did my little chart maybe less than 2 months ago and discovered that I'm a Scorpio rising. And so now I watch both of the little, forecasts and drawings or stuff. And I'm kind of like, I had no idea that I was both of these things combined into one. So it's really fascinating. Talk a little bit more about that, because I had no clue about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third player that you would want to know if you want to look at your chart is the moon, the placement of the moon. So that would be those three main players. But now consider even just the sun. Let's look just at the sun in Taurus, which is sun is now in Taurus, right? So we all know that. And it's the season of Taurus. So what sun in Taurus indicates is that, first of all, each planet can have a positive and a negative expression. And what you have described when you talked about Taurus, that you knew, Taurus people, you have described the so-called negative expression. So it is a negative expression when it is excessive, right? So when we say somebody is stubborn, it can be excessive, but it can also be a positive thing if it is good for them to be stubborn in following their own truth. So that would be a good expression, right?
Yeah.
So every sign and every sun, so sun in the sign, meaning every sign can have a positive and a negative expression. So I will talk a little bit more about the positive expressions of Taurus, and I will just tell you three things. not overwhelm you, because there will be a lot more that we'll be talking about. So one of the things that the Taurus is really good at is their practicality. So they're always looking at how can they do whatever they do, how can they ground that in the practical world, in practical terms. They're not ones to just chase rainbows that are high in the sky or build castles high in the sky. They are the ones that can have sustained action toward the goal that they choose, that they think is valuable. So when we have Moon in Taurus, what we are looking for, or what the focus is for everybody, but especially for the person who has already their Moon in Taurus, is what is it that makes us feel stable? What is it that makes us feel secure? How can we enjoy life through all of our senses? Taurus is very sensual. And for many people, that means actually enjoying being out in nature. But also it means just enjoying things that are pleasurable through all of our senses. So sense of touch. So if you go to somebody who has Sun in Taurus, maybe you will notice that everything in their home is pleasant to the eye. Or if you're sitting on the couch, you might notice that they have a really soft blanket, right, on that couch, like a throw. That they have flowers at home all the time, that they enjoy just having beautiful things, wearing beautiful things, or even just having a lot of art at home, maybe even being artists themselves. So there are lots of things that we can talk about when we talk about Taurus, but I will stop just at that. So let's say just the 4 specific things that those of us who are not Taurus, or who do not know if we have Moon in Taurus. So for all of us, what this period means is focusing on what makes us feel stable and secure, where we find beauty in our lives, what we enjoy, and what we value. So those
that's very interesting, because there's actually a lot of people who find it very difficult to answer those questions about what they enjoy and what makes them happy. Because they tend to get very conditioned. Now, I know a lot of the people that you and I kind of, at least in my circles, they tend to be very, love and light, and like they've paid a lot of attention to this. But in the real world, in the regular world, people's daily lives kind of overwhelm them to the point where they can't even picture a life where they walk in happiness. They only see their routine, their distractions, the things they have to do, the list and all the titles that they give themselves: mother, wife, father, teacher, all of these things that we put on ourselves. So it's very fascinating. So then this would be a good time for us to focus on maybe even finding that.
Absolutely. So every month for the last 5 years, I've been sending out what I call newsletters, but they're actually full moon and new moon reports. So new moon happens once a month and full moon happens once a month. So that means I've been sending things twice a month, right?
Yes, and if you want to sign up, I put the link in the description for this video for Brana's website. So make sure that you go there and sign up for it.
Yeah, it's free, and it's quite detailed depending on how the energies are, and you receive it each month. So this is where I describe what you can do, even if you don't know anything about astrology. What are some practical things that you can expect? And we're going to touch upon that today as well in just a minute. And then what are some things that you can do? Because it's not astrology for me. The whole point of astrology is actually helping us. It's not to satisfy our curiosity. So when somebody comes to me for an astrological chart, it's not only you are like this and this is, what you can expect in your life, to happen in your life, but actually what can you do with all of these energies? Because some of them may be helping you, some of them may be blocking you. And once you see them in your chart as energies described by somebody who doesn't know you, such as me, right? And then you understand that these are real forces, but you also can understand by the way I talk about them that you can actually use them, that you are not at their mercy, but that you can use them as long as you know what they are and how they benefit you and how they present obstacles when you don't see them, right? So this is a bigger story, but just briefly, it is very important to understand that. So So that will be just what I've talked about so far is just the energy of the new moon, meaning the combination of the sun and the moon. However, most of the time, this energy of the new moon, or both the sun and the moon, are influenced by some other planets.
Mm-hmm.
And today, or starting last night and then continuing today, they are influenced by two planets that have seemingly opposite goals. One of them is Uranus, which is a planet of change.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is Saturn, which is a planet of staying the same. Let's keep everything the same. So that would be just the easiest way to describe them and the quickest way to describe them. But I'll go in a little more detail, and then I'll tell you what you can do with that information. So Uranus is also known as the planet of disruption, and Saturn is also known as the planet that wants to maintain and keep the status quo. Mm-hmm. Uranus is also about freedom and breaking away from everything that is known. And Saturn is about restriction, and it is also about lessons, learning lessons from the past usually, but it could be just learning lessons as you go through life.
Yeah.
So with the new, so how do we then, how can we look at all of that and make sense out of all of that? So with the new moon energy being impacted by these two, we can look at it in this way. We can say that for our new beginnings, which is the energy of the new moon, we can examine what it is that we want to change and what it is that we want to keep the same. Mm-hmm. So, taking a piece of paper and asking yourself those questions and then see what comes up. Because there are things that both Uranus and Saturn can bring to us from the outside world as events that we do not have control over. But there is always in astrology a part that we do have a control over, which is how can we use those energies? The more consciously we use those energies, the less energy is available from that same source to impact us. Mm-hmm. So you can think of this, if this is too hard to, I don't know if people are posting comments because they cannot see anything.
Nope, we're good. Go for it.
Okay. But if this is hard to understand, just think of this. If you have ever swam in the sea, and if you have ever encountered waves when you swam, if you were swimming and trying to overcome or go through the waves would you probably would have experienced that the waves are splashing all over you, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're swimming and if you relax and if you kind of let the wave kind of flow and kind of go on top of that wave, then you continually stay on top. Right. So this is not a metaphor. This is actually, I love swimming and I started swimming. I learned how to swim professionally from a teacher when I was 7 years old. And I really never had problems in any kind of weather. And I was swimming every single summer. We would go for 2 weeks, sometimes a month and a half. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the most exhilarating experiences I've ever had. And this is also how I learned to trust that energy, to trust my body, to trust how it all works. And then that can become a metaphor. But, gotcha. If you haven't experienced it, it's not just a metaphor. Somebody has actually used it and experienced it. And this is why it became a metaphor, because it really is so. So it is the same with these energies. We can fight them. We can resist them. We can say, well, I really don't like that this is like that. I really don't like that I have to deal with that. I don't like that I have obstacles. Or we can say, okay, here is what we have. There is this huge wave coming. What am I going to do?
Right.
How am I going to deal with that?
And that's something that's very difficult, is because we're trained to be in control. We're conditioned to think that we're controlling what's going on. I'm sure you hear my cat going crazy.
Yes.
We're not going outside. Stop. Q. He's literally at the back door grabbing the doorknob because he wants to, I walk him. See, he's a big fat Tommy cat. So I walk him in our little backyard. People who watch me know that he's my co-host. He usually sits back here while we do the show. But yesterday there was a little birdie out in the yard that was flapping around and like taunting him. So even though we went out this morning, his little friend, the bird, was not out there. So I guess he saw her out the window. And now he wants to go out back. So I apologize. It is not a child moaning in pain. It is just my 12-year-old Tommy cat. But a lot of people feel like we have to be in control, and
Yeah.
we have to be in control of our emotions, and we have to be all masterful of where, what we're doing and what we're focused on. And if you're not spiritual, it's very goal based, and I need to be thinking this way and I need to achieve that. But if I'm hearing what you're saying, it's a lot about kind of going with the flow. And if you're feeling an overwhelming something, kind of sit with it for a minute and kind of figure out. And if you're able to have access to Brana's reports, then you could look at how that kind of is connected to the way that you're feeling, to the way that you're going through this, the emotions that are coming up. I always find that, of course, I say it a lot, anything that gives you a strong reaction is something that you need to pay attention to. And sitting in an uncomfortable feeling is something that, especially Americans, because we're very impatient, have a very hard time doing. And so that sounds like sitting in that feeling, whatever it may be, coming from the new moon of the month or any of the energies, can really help you to ride them out, to figure out how to utilize them, like you're talking about.
Yes. And then if you know the specifics, such as, if I mention, so for instance, my astrology students and of course other astrologers understand that each planet has its own set of themes. So if you know what these themes are, and I'm giving you some idea as to what they are right now, if you have that sense, then you can get even more focused and really pinpoint some things that are for this moment rising up for you, because not every day is the same. And on different days, you may get different themes that make you uncomfortable, right? And then you also get, based on the planets, different answers, meaning on one day, one approach would be better than the other. And on 3 days, from now, another approach would be better than what I suggest today. So that is the beauty of following this every day. And this is why I post this every single day or almost every day on my Facebook page, a very brief kind of a theme of the day. And you will also see the comments, and a lot of people comment of how it resonates with them.
And I have that link in the description too, you guys. Go on up and check it out for sure.
Yeah. So to continue with this, another question that you can ask today is, what lessons did you learn? And what obstacles are still there on your path to freedom? And I keep it kind of broad because for each person, the details of that are going to be different. But the overall theme, I think we can all resonate with. We can all find what are those things that we are still learning, and what are those things that are still obstacles in our path and that we want to overcome. So those would be very useful questions to ask today, because with the energy that we have, we are going to get the answers to these questions much more easily than if we were to sit down and ask the same things on a different day. That is the beauty of knowing astrology.
Yes.
You're really flowing with that wave if you know what the wave is about.
Right. That is very helpful.
All right. So to give you a little bit of, some of you may already have a sense and maybe already got your notebooks and are maybe already writing. But let's say those of you who still have questions and for whom the sense that just the word freedom is too big, I'm going to narrow it down even a little more. So once again, not generally, but in alignment with these two planets that we talked about today, which are, once again, Uranus and Saturn, which are connecting to the new moon. Okay?
So change and no change.
That's right. Very good. Very good. So the one with the change and the one that is connected to freedom. So how can you think about that? So what is that freedom about? It can be a freedom of self-expression. It can be a freedom to honor your authentic needs and your authentic wants. And it can be the freedom to feel your feelings, which a lot of people have been taught not to do.
Right.
It's one of the hardest things for a person who has been continually told that they are too much, that they are overly sensitive, that they should get over it, and things like that. That is one of the hardest things to do, to allow themselves to feel those feelings and not hear that voice in their head that tells them that they should stop.
Right. And I think for men, especially, not that I'm going to speak on behalf of the men, but
Yeah.
they're really taught that their feelings are not okay from the time they're little. And I think that is changing a lot with the younger generations, but I'm half a century almost. And so, you know, the boys that I grew up with and the men that I know, you know, they're taught to not show their vulnerabilities, to not show their emotions, that the world needs to see them a particular way. I have a friend that I've known since I was 20. I met him when I was 23 years old. We've been very good friends. And he still to this day, even as close as we are, does not want me to see any of his issues, does not want to reach out when he's having pain, when he's having problems, but he's very determined to be my rock in my ear when I need to talk. And I'm always like, I am here for you. You need to share this stuff. Don't like sit on it, you know, like don't hold it in, you know? So I definitely, that's one of those spaces where we are taught. And for me, it was always be a good little girl. So you weren't allowed to show anger. You weren't allowed to show that you were unhappy with something. You weren't allowed to show displeasure, even being married, even, you know, smile. You would be so pretty if you smiled. Even that sometimes is like, really, do I we're told to control that and to not connect with those emotions, just put on that mask and, you know, pretend to be that happy person.
I wanted to say something about men and expression of feelings. Everything you said is absolutely so. There is one thing though that I have come across, and I can't really remember the source, but it said that men actually would benefit more from sharing their feelings with other men than with women. And for those of you who are interested in that topic, just look it up and you will find much more. I'm not going to go into that right now, but there is something in terms of the hormonal differences of what it does for women to share with other women and with men. So men to listen to women, and then men to listen to another man when they share about their feelings. So there is a little bit.
And if we look back at like ancient history, there were always women did their work together and men did their work together. And not to say that one set of work was more important, but it was that that community based and that connection that they found and in each of them and the support. And so, but that is something that's kind of gone to the wayside. Although if you look at like guys who are into sports, they may not be sharing their feelings, but they are sharing that energy of a group, you know?
Yes. And I think now, as you said, more and more with the younger generations, they are even with in sports going in that direction much more and supporting each other. I've seen some of the comments of sports figures online that testify to that.
Because people are waking up, even the big sports figures and whatnot. People are waking up, and some of the most masculine, strong men that you would think of are actually coming out with a lot of spiritual content. And like one of them, just off the top of my head, although I know he's kind of controversial because a lot of people think a certain particular way about him, but Will Smith posts a lot of stuff about his spiritual journey and about looking within and about sharing your feelings and that sort of thing. And so many of the, you know, the professional athletes that we have and the actors that we have, Jim Carrey, you know, really have shifted their focus inward as we've been in this awakening wave that has been going through. So, you know, that's something that is very uplifting to me. And like, it kind of gets me a little like, oh, yay, you know, like we all get excited looking at that. And so this time of the new moon under this Taurus, do you find that certain signs are better for male or female energies, or for that duality within ourselves, the feminine aspects and the masculine aspects?
That is a great question. Traditionally, specific signs are associated with male or female polarities. But I think in general, as a sign, we can step away from that because when we look at the sign, we are talking about a period of about 30 days when sun is in that sign. But when we talk about the moon energy, the moon spends only about 2 days in each sign.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see how complex that is, like kind of circle within a circle? So I could answer that question, but it's just by the way I want to answer it, it would take us a long time. So maybe some other time for the male-female polarities.
That's for another show, y'all.
I know. sort of a never-ending story, But I do wanna comment on the word that you used just a moment ago, and that is awakening. Uranus is known as the Great Awakener, and Uranus is the ruler of the Aquarius, and the age of Aquarius is also known as the time period where people are going to start to awaken. So maybe that will be something for another show.
Yes, exciting.
Yeah.
So exciting.
But to come back to our things of what else we can do today in terms of connecting to our sense of freedom, which is once again connected to Uranus and the new moon today. This aspect in particular brings out also our creativity. And in the sense, the more original we are, the more out there we are, the better. So if you get some idea that you have never had before and you're like, oh my God, this is really way out there, and I don't know if I should do it or not, definitely do it, because today is the day to connect with your wild ideas, with something that is really out there, out in the space, so to speak, and then really you will see how you will benefit from that, because the moon in Taurus really rewards the work that you put out during the new moon. So what you begin to value during the time of the moon in Taurus has the chance to grow exponentially as opposed to some other times. Okay?
Gotcha. See, that's very fascinating. I am a big proponent of anything that you create, anything that comes from that creative energy is coming directly from divine. You're basically channeling the energy of the universe. And so many of us put limits on our creativity because we're worried people will judge us, because we think, oh, I've never seen that before, or I don't want people to look sideways at me, or whatever it may be. And I always think that the bigger the idea, the crazier the idea, the more you should pay attention to it. You may not be able to make it as big and crazy as it's given to you, but I feel like sometimes that energy, because we always have they're always trying to give us signs. They are always trying to give us signs. The universe is always, so sometimes they have to go big to get our attention. So it might come to you in the form of an elephant, with neon lights and, spinning circus lights around it. But it might be a very small kernel of an idea that is brought to you in this giant, crazy way that you can then bring into existence. So this will be a good time to really pay attention to that crazy stuff that comes into your mind and write it down. And even if you can't decipher it now, there may be another energy that helps you decipher it in the future, I guess, is the way that you're talking about these cycles.
Perfect. Exactly so. You got it perfectly. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, that's exactly so. And the thing is, today you will be much more open to receiving those insights than on some other day. So, for instance, it will be good to check if you already know your astrology. This will be useful only for those who already know their astrology charts and who know how to follow transits. But it will be useful to follow when you have a creative block and when you have a writer's block, what is in play, and then when some other energy comes, when it's really flowing, what is in play then. And I bet you will discover some of these things we are talking about today. If you're not at that level, then just do something today that I'm suggesting, and then that will be your proof that all this actually makes sense and it really works.
Yeah.
So look for ideas and guidance that you receive today. Be open to insights, be open to inspiration. As I said, you are very likely to receive a lot that you may use at another time, as Lee said, right? That being said, what you also want to understand is that the energy of today is such that even when you have a great idea, once again, Lee, you mentioned that, but I do want to say that has to do with today's energies. You might have doubts that this is not going to work. And that will be the voice of that Saturn that I have mentioned before, which introduces worry and doubt and fear. And so you may want to really just write it down and leave it to some other day when that goes away.
Gotcha.
Okay, so don't be fooled by this other voice that tells you, oh, this will never work, because that energy is also very strong today. So don't give in to that, okay?
Gotcha. Yeah, and people have that voice. Some people have it all the time.
Yeah.
And
those
it's
people,
a moment to moment
yes.
thing to kind of battle that.
Yes, and I have to jump in and say that everybody who has that voice that I have seen in my astrology consultations, they have Saturn in a very challenging position. And so it is really hard for those people to listen to a motivational speaker who tells them, oh, you just do this and then, this will disappear. Or you just do that and, you're this, you're that. Or if you just. With
Right.
people who do have that placement, have a feeling that they're constantly driving with the brake on. And depending on what else is in their chart, that can help them more than the generalized advice. Although we do all benefit from inspiration, but if you have the means to connect with an astrologer and to contact an astrologer to help you understand where those blocks come, how you can overcome them based on what is in your chart, not in some other people's, success or, how everybody else did it.
Right.
Then you will, number one, feel more prepared to deal with those times when that voice comes, because it on the one hand it is every day, but it's not really every day.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you're not going to be tough on yourself when you hear a success story of somebody else and you compare yourself to that person. You're like, well, I also meditate every day. I'm not getting these results that this other person is getting. Why is that? Right? And be disappointed and think there is something wrong with you. And I think that is one of the hardest things that a person who has listened to a lot of motivation speeches or coaches and things and things have not worked for them the way that they thought it would.
Right.
I don't want those people to give up. Okay, that's
Right.
why.
And that creates a level of shame in people.
Yes. Oh,
And even saying, you're beautiful, and doing affirmations. I did a whole show on how oftentimes affirmations make people feel worse about themselves because they say one thing and they see something else because of the version of reality that they're choosing to live in.
yes.
And so I actually just recently started reading a book. I started a little group so we could dig into this a little bit, but about how separating that, actually what you're saying about how that is Saturn in the house and in the particular house, that separating, recognizing that is not me saying that, even though it is you saying that, recognizing that is a separate thing. And I don't have to be driven by that. I don't have to be controlled by that. That's my Saturn voice, and putting it into a different, almost personifying it as something outside of yourself gives you the ability to move past it while still being aware of it, but not letting it rule you. Is that, something that, so now do you do that sort of count? Because I want to make sure people know they can go to you for that kind of stuff if that's, some of what you do.
Yes, absolutely. That is one of the beautiful things of astrology. It can show you that, and you can personify them, as you said, and then you can recognize it as just one aspect, as opposed to this whole thing that takes over you. It is incredibly helpful when people do that, and when they can think and talk in those terms, even when you are experiencing it and it still feels hard. You remind yourself, this is just one aspect of me that right now is demanding my attention. It is not
That's Saturn. That's really not me. That's Saturn talking. That's really not me talking. Even though it has my voice, that's really not me talking. So that's when I first had my awakening in 2012, I didn't know anything about this stuff. And I channeled this book, right? And they called voices like that the darkness, which now, after being in this, we strive to integrate, right? We strive to embrace our shadow, and you kind of let go of that understanding that it's a separate thing that's built by pain, that's built by trauma, and evidently, I did not know, but built by where your stuff lines up in your chart. We as humans have a hard time with the abstract. But putting it into a concrete, giving it that personified, that is separate, that is something that is connected, but is not me specifically, really allows us to work on it in a more close way. And it's something that I think I really forgot until just recently, when the universe brought me this book that plopped down, and I was like, oh my God, I already knew this. And yet I had to be reminded, 8 years into the journey, because we've been working so hard on integrating and embracing our shadow selves that we forget that we're still human, and sometimes we need that personification of those parts to allow them to. You have to know it's something separate to embrace it. Almost, to hug something else. Yeah.
That is so beautifully put. I love how you do this.
Thank you. We've had so many orbs. I don't know if you've been distracted by the orbs, but when I do my shows, there's always a lot of orbs that kind of go across the screen. So like I've been kind of watching them come through. It is not bugs in my house, people. I promise. It's not like dust and whatnot. It's just I get a lot of orbs during the show, and they've been extra active today. So I think that's because you're here and like raising that energy. So I know that you. Is there anything else you want to talk about the Taurus new moon? Because I know that there's something big going on too. So okay, go ahead.
Right.
Please
just
share.
a little bit more, because I want to also say something about the physical things that Uranus and Saturn and Moon and Sun, when they all connect in this way, what else can they cause? Mm-hmm. So for some people, physically, on the physical level, they can experience nervous tension, they can experience restlessness, higher anxiety, inability to focus, impatience, irritability, sudden impulsive reactions, emotional disturbances, and mood swings. So if you have experienced anything like that starting yesterday, let's say midday, and it is continuing and it continues throughout today, just know once again that these are some of the things that are common. And if you use the energy in the other way that I have described, so paying attention to all of the other things that I'm not going to now repeat because there are too many of them, but if you use that energy in that way, all of these symptoms are going to go away or minimize or get smaller. Mm-hmm. Because the whole point of doing astrology and knowing astrology and working with energies is, if you use that energy in one way, there is less of it to affect you in this other way.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So I'm seeing that right there. It's like you want all your eggs on this side in this basket, and that leaves fewer of them to be out there causing mischief. And yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Exactly. That is exactly so. All right. One more. I want to end the talk about a new moon on a positive note. So I'm just going to list a few other things that you may spontaneously also experience today. And that now, of course, how are you going to experience the energy spontaneously without you consciously connecting to it actually depends on where your planets are in the chart and how this whole energy affects you personally, right? So there are some global things and some bigger things, and then how it connects with your planets is how it plays out in your life. Mm-hmm. So this energy can also bring a sense of vitality, a sense of aliveness, a sense of emotional liberation. So something finally, gets released. Some people may become more spontaneous in expressing their feelings. And also you might find that some people come back into your life. Some people that you have been close to in the past, you may start reconnecting with. Okay. So, are we ready to move on to the electromagnetic stuff? I almost feel like this should be the end of the show, though. To be honest.
Whatever you want to do, you can lead the way.
Yeah. Well, if there is anybody who is now currently online, I would actually like to hear how they're feeling. Are they kind of complete, or if they have some questions about their physical symptoms? So well, just so I know.
Elisa Spangler-Miller just jumped in and said hello.
Hello, Elisa.
So I think a lot of the places that we broadcast, people just hit the sound and don't click in and watch and comment,
Okay.
So because I'm doing it from the page, it's a lot of technical whatnot doodads where people can watch it without having to like really go into the broadcast. So.
Okay. Well, you did announce this and I did announce this. So let's talk about that then.
Okay. I grabbed some pictures. So let me pull up the first one that you posted a few days ago.
Yes.
Let's see if I can get this here. Let me change the little thing under here. I have a little, we'll change it. Is it magnetic energy or
That's
geomagnetic
it.
storms?
Both of those.
Electromagnetic.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with electromagnetic energy.
Yeah.
And let's see if I can get this to find the right picture. Okay, there we go. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, nope, I'm going the wrong direction. Hold
Okay.
on. You talk. I'll find the picture. I'm going to put up the picture
Okay.
that had from the 20th from a couple of days ago that had the information. Oh, Debbie's here too. Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
Debbie Polston. Okay.
Oh.
Um, I'm going to put up the image that has the two comparisons from the
Okay.
20th and the energy. So if you just talk about the energy, I'll look for the
Yes.
picture and put it up. Okay.
Okay. Sure. All right. So, in addition to the new moon energy, we have been under the influences of three separate things. And the first one is the increased radiation that is carried through by the cosmic rays. And this is measured by the scientists at the Space Weather Prediction Center, which provides real-time monitoring and forecasting of solar and geophysical events. And then we've had the geomagnetic storm, the first in first in a long time, at least a year. I think we haven't had a geomagnetic storm this big. So a geomagnetic storm creates a disturbance in the magnetic field of the Earth, and that is separate from the third thing that I'm going to mention, which is a huge increase of amplitude or strength of the Earth's electromagnetic frequency. And that frequency is stable. It is measured at 7.83 hertz. So the frequency is stable, but the amplitude of that frequency, which is typically at around 10 power of 10, the number is 10, but the word is power. So the strength of that frequency, which is usually 10, has last night reached 138. The last few days we have had it at 110 and then 80. So today or the last night was the highest, and that is the highest in I think the last 2 years. About 2 years ago, we've had 168 just for one day, half of a day. And then before then, we haven't had anything that big, and since then we haven't had it this big. So in the last 10 years. Or maybe let's say in the last 7 years. I have been following this since 2013, almost every single day. And I have been posting on Facebook pretty regularly about this. So if you go down my timeline, you will see all the way as far as you can go. You will see from time to time these different graphs that I post. And then on some graphs, I include explanations of what it is. But recently, because I have been posting so many of them, I'm not including additional information. But I will tell you what that all means, all that together. So we are talking about three separate events. Sometimes they coincide, but not always. And they are the increase of radiation through the cosmic rays, then the geomagnetic storm that it comes from the sun and affects the geomagnetic field of the Earth, and then the Schumann resonance, which sometimes is connected to the geomagnetic storm, but sometimes it is not. And for all these three things, the scientists are able to measure it very precisely, but they don't always tell us every time it happens. They don't tell us how it works. So you can find the measurements, but only from time to time, even on those pages, they will actually post that there have been studies that have shown a very strong correlation between the disturbances of the geomagnetic field of the Earth and the electromagnetic field of people. And of course, they don't put it like that. They say that they have found that people experience cardiovascular problems and then the nervous system issues during those times.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so they have so as I said, sometimes they happen separately. For the last 2.5 weeks, we have had the cosmic rays continually, unrelentingly, every single night. They usually arrive at night in this hemisphere. Um, and what that means is that imagine if you're continually being poked by somebody. So you're sitting and trying to enjoy yourself, and somebody continually just pokes you in the shoulder or the arm or however. And one time
Mhm.
it's okay. One time you're like, oh, okay, I don't care. Two, three times you're like, well, you better stop. But 25 times and you cannot stop it, it really is disturbing. So even if it were just like that, it would have been pretty upsetting. But now imagine something that you can't even see. A lot of people feel it, they don't know what it is. And on top of that, that is not all. On top of that, we do have the destabilization of the geomagnetic field of the Earth. Those of you who know what I do, you also have heard me talk about the electromagnetic field that all of us have, that is measurable, that extends several feet around the person, and that can be strengthened or weakened both by our actions and also by the environment, including these changes in the electromagnetism of the Earth. And then also the Schumann resonances, which you can read about also in all kinds of scientific places.
Mhm.
So recently, as I said, we have had those rays for 2.5 weeks. We have had the Schumann resonance increase dramatically. I mean, Schumann resonance amplitude. So I explained what the amplitude is. So Schumann
Mhm.
resonance amplitude increased dramatically in the last week on 3 occasions. And then the geomagnetic storm, the first one this year and the first one in about 300 days back. And we have
Mhm.
had all of that
Wow.
in a very, very short amount of time.
Yeah.
So,
Intense.
yes. And so when I post that,
On
of
top
course,
of everyone sitting in their feelings,
yes,
sitting in their own space,
yes,
having to deal with their own emotions without
yes,
the distractions of the world, on
yes,
top of that competing Saturn and Uranus
yes,
energy,
yes,
you also have the electromagnetic. And we do have some people jumping in and giving some input and stuff here
yes.
as well right now. Angela says, she's been grouchy today,
Yes.
but she remembers her dreams from last night
Uh-huh.
and felt like she needed to write them down, even though she doesn't usually journal.
Perfect.
So
So,
that's very
Angela,
interesting.
yeah, so Angela, you're riding this energy just right. So, grouchy and grumpy are the keywords for the expression of Saturn. Insight, intuition, heightened understanding, or heightened remembrance of dreams, that will be Uranus, and an impetus to write them, also Uranus. So, you're just flowing along with this energy perfectly.
That's good. It's always fascinating to me when we do something instinctively and it
Yeah,
turns out to be exactly what we're supposed to do. I'm always like, oh, look at that,
yes,
because, it's validation that we have the knowledge within us, that we're
yes,
tapped in to that constant flow of all knowledge in the universe, and that there is a trickle down into us
yeah,
that we sometimes can go, oh, okay, yeah, I know
yeah.
this. Oh, I did do this right.
Yes, exactly. And the more aware we are in those moments, the more we open ourselves to other moments to be like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I talk about that a lot I do liken it to a faucet that starts out like kind of a drip. But
Mhm.
if you encourage that, like if you tie a little thing to it and then the water runs down like a little handkerchief, you almost can get a flow of
Mhm.
water coming down. And the
Yeah.
more that the water comes out, like if you think about your faucet, if it drips for a long time, the drip gets bigger and bigger and bigger because the water starts to come through more and more. So if the knowledge is the water, that's coming through more and more as we allow that to drip down to us. And the more
Beautiful.
you listen to it and the more you pay attention to it, the louder it sounds, just like an annoying drip on your faucet, right? But hopefully it's not annoying in your head. Robin Warner says that she's super tired and that her sleep has not been very good
Yeah.
lately. Is that also tied into all of this?
Oh, absolutely, yes. A lot of people experience insomnia, anxiety, greater restlessness, and of course, depending on whatever your weak link in your body is, that's what is going to be hit the most. And because we are not all robots, right, it does not affect us in exactly the same way. And this is where the scientists they make their biggest mistake. They look at us as if we are all robots. When they do the
Mm-hmm.
research, they do not consider the high individuality and our baseline of health and wellness, which determines how we are going to experience this energy. Because for somebody who has a low blood pressure, this may be a very invigorating energy, and they may feel great because it gives them a
Mm.
boost in energy that, officially, if they were to measure, they would probably discover that their blood pressure has elevated. But now imagine the same thing for somebody who has high blood pressure. And I'm not speaking out of turn or out of my head. They're actually the studies that the scientists have published that have found correlations between actual cardiac arrests and this energy that I'm speaking of. So
That's
high
fascinating.
number of cardiac arrests during this particular time. So these
Yeah.
are real energies. So then why am I talking about that, right? Again, those of you who know me know that I don't talk about things just to talk about them. There is, the whole point is that there is a solution. So while we cannot escape planet Earth, at least not now, and while we cannot escape these influences, what we can do is strengthen our energy field. So once again, we go back to that thing that I had mentioned a moment ago. The stronger and the better our baseline of health and wellness is, the less we are going to be affected by this in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that if you remember just one thing from today's talk, that you will remember this, because we all think, okay, we're just going to sit with this and it's going to go away. And it does. But if we sit with this and just let it go away, and the next time it comes and we again sit with this and let it go away, and if we don't do anything in the meantime to strengthen our energy, at some point it's going to get us, because it does affect our physicality and it makes us weaker and weaker and weaker. It doesn't make us stronger all by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It does over time. It possibly, how about this? Possibly over time, it can make us a little stronger. But for a lot of people who already are at not perfect health, they're not getting anything beneficial from these energies. However, if you do anything possible to increase your health at this time, I do need to mention energy sessions, because that is what I do and what I know has helped. But a lot of people are doing a lot of different things. And some of these things can be grounding. Some of these things can be connecting with crystals, which come from the earth, which help you with grounding if you cannot go outside. Some people are doing a lot of meditation, which is also super helpful, different types of meditations for different things. So there are lots of things that people can do on their own to strengthen their own energy field, and to do that continually now, not waiting for those moments when something hits them. And if there is one lesson, once again, that we all need to learn at this time, it is that health, our own health, is no longer something that we need to pay attention only when something hurts, but actually we need to start thinking of it as a regular hygiene, right? You get up and you brush your teeth and you take a shower. It's the same thing with energy work. Whether it is done by somebody else or by you, by yourself, that's totally up to you. I, even though I can do a lot of things for myself, and I am doing a lot of things for myself, in order to be even more effective and to feel even better, I have received energy work and continue to receive energy work from people I trust on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that a lot of people feel uh, once they become awakened, let's say like that, they feel that they should do everything themselves. And there
Mm-hmm.
is nothing more debilitating than that belief, because we are not here to be alone. We are not here to be islands in the sea. We are here and we are given all of these things to help ourselves and to help other people, but also to understand that we also need help. We also need to receive. And this is something, once again, that can become a new normal if we understand that this is for our highest good, and that there is nothing there that we should judge ourselves for. Because that is what I heard from quite a few people who think that they should only get an energy session when they're absolutely feeling horrible and cannot move throughout their day. Whereas imagine if you were to receive an energy session when you're already feeling okay, or if you're feeling great, and then just build up on that and build up on that and build up on that. That also means that when the hard times come, you will be much more equipped to deal with them, whether they're physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. It doesn't matter what it is. You're at a high frequency when you work with the energy of your body. Before you actually need help, you're at a high frequency, your vibration is stronger, and you can deal with everything much, much better.
Yeah. I'm going to liken this to something incredibly practical, because I had this revelation about 6 months ago. And I mean, for me, it was a revelation. Maybe for you guys, it's not. But so I'm a person, I don't care about what kind of car I drive. I've never paid attention much to it. If I get in it and it starts and it stops when I hit the brakes, then I'm a happy camper. And I just drive that car until the wheels fall off. I buy the cheapest thing I can find and I just drive it. Yeah. So I bought a car like a year and a half ago, and a little cheapy thing, like for less than $2,000. And I bought it from the mechanic, and he loves this car. Like, he put his heart and soul into rebuilding all the stuff on it. So when something breaks, or, he gave me a list, this is some things that still need to be done on it. So I've gone in and had those things done. And every time I do, he's like, why don't you come in between? You need to add oil. You need to do this. You need to, she needs work. You have to take care of her. And I said, I drive this car until, I drive cars till the wheels fall off. And then I thought for a second, I said, I do the same thing with my health. I have worked in restaurants and slammed forward, just work for so many years. Now that I'm in a state of, I do have some physical stuff going on, I still will ignore it until it gets to the point that I'm in a bad place. And so it's like the maintenance on your car. Like you're saying, you have to, if you go in and you do your oil changes and you get your tune-ups and you have them look at it on a regular basis every couple of months, then you don't get these huge issues. You don't get these great big problems where things just like out of nowhere, all of a sudden the engine's on fire because you've been paying attention to it. And when you need that car, it's going to be there for you. It's not going to break down. So the same thing with our body and even with our mind is that if we just keep pushing forward and ignoring all of the symptoms that our body is screaming at us until we literally break down out of exhaustion or pain or mental distress or an anxiety attack, then we are doing to ourselves exactly what I do to my cars, where I drive them until the engine explodes, So I'm on like a concerted effort to now pay attention to that kind of stuff and to do some daily maintenance. And I obviously, I'm a little bit of a round girl, but I'm doing exercise every single day, whether it looks that way from the outside or not, because it's about the physical, the mental connection, the spiritual connection, and all of that. I'm not concerned about the outside. I'm concerned about my systems, because I don't care what the car looks like on the outside. I care that the engine is running good, right? Yes. So I need to be paying attention to that. And I think everyone has something in their life where they ignore the signs. They ignore those little things. They push themselves because they think they should. Because the world is telling them, you need to do things this way. You need to make it be like this. You have to do X, Y, Z. You are supposed to be the perfect mom, the perfect wife, the perfect husband, the perfect worker. You're supposed to be able to juggle everything, especially, I think, in this time, because we feel like we're not doing anything. Then there's extra pressure that we should be being very productive, But all of these energies and paying attention to them, the way that you've discussed them, is actually being productive, by
Yes.
focusing on those little things and by reaching out to those healers and by asking for help. And I
Yeah.
do think that as healers, as people who, speak to others about spirituality, we all have to remember that we're all unhealed healers, and that we will get in our heads about, I don't want other people to think that I'm not good as a healer because I need to go to Brana and get an energy session, or because I need to go and, see so and so for a Reiki session. We are not all things at all times. We are
Yeah.
not the all powerful, and we're meant to depend on each other
Yeah.
and lean on each other.
Yeah. And one of my favorite analogies are, not even hairdressers cut their own hair. Not even the best brain surgeon can operate on their brain. So we need to take that into advisement and look at things from that perspective as well. And
Absolutely.
finally, it is really good to receive. Let's say that all of us can do some sort of self massage, right, or reflexology. But isn't it a totally different experience to do it yourself and then to go to a massage therapist and just completely let go and completely enjoy what you can receive from another person?
Absolutely.
Right?
And
Yeah.
receiving in and of itself is a skill that has to be learned,
Oh, yeah.
especially for people who are healers who are used to giving. It
Yes.
is very difficult to just receive, and not just things like in our hand, and not even just the physical thing like you're saying, but even to receive a compliment.
Yeah.
For some people is so incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
It literally is like a muscle that you have to work, learning how to receive
Yes.
energy from other people, especially when it's nice, generous, positive, loving, that sort of energy, the good kind,
Yeah.
that is a skill in and of itself. And so that's another thing that reaching out to other people and other healers can help you with, is not just the actual service that you're going to receive,
Yeah.
but the practice that you get in being able to receive without guilt, without shame, without saying, no, 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 I don't deserve this,
Yeah.
but rather just accepting that, because the love that we get from others is literally the love of the universe channeled through a physical person. It's given to us. A hug is the universe giving us unconditional love in a physical form, because we have physical bodies and we are human right now. So
Yeah.
it can't literally do that in a way. This physical love that we get from others is a way to connect with the divine, not just to connect with that other person. And it is for them as well in the giving. And so it's all very like intricately connected, like you were talking about with the different energies that are all kind of connected in the
Yeah.
houses and the time period and the moon and all that kind of stuff. It's all this amazing interplay that is so much more complicated, like the most complicated Rube Goldberg machine. Or if I'm a sci-fi nerd, so for people who have watched the Dark Crystal, there's that giant machine that has all the pieces, that's like a representation of all the planets and all the stars moving all at the same time, that this seer can see the future through with all of the movements of this
Oh,
machine.
wow.
And it's so fascinating because it really is like this beautiful ballet that
Yeah.
goes on, where we're seeing what's on the stage, but there's so much going on behind the scenes, and lifting the sets and pointing the lights and underneath the ground, and the costumes and the makeup people, and everything works in conjunction to create this experience for each one of us. So it's really fascinating. This has been incredibly fascinating.
Yeah, for me too,
and,
to be
and
speaking with.
it's been so great. Debbie is saying that she needs energy to keep her charge to do her job.
Yeah.
And we all do. This has been such great information you've been sharing. I want to make sure that everybody can get in touch with you. So I am going to put your websites and the little pictures of your Facebook. I did put both the links up here. So if you would just chat for a moment about what you do, what you offer, how you can help, what the way that healers and anyone can reach out to you and get a little bit of help. So you chat, and I'm going to put those
Okay.
images up.
Well, first of all, it's been a pleasure, and it's such a wonderful thing to be able to talk about that in this way, because when I do my work, it's usually one-on-one, unless it's a workshop or a class. And to connect with people in this way is something that, especially for, to connect with somebody who is so into this world like you are, Lee, it is such a beautiful exchange of energy. And I just feel my heart is filled with beautiful energy right now. So I want to thank you for that. And for those of you who would like to connect with me, of course, you can just go to the website and see what I do and read in detail what is there. But very briefly, I want to say that I do soul energy blueprint readings for the astrology chart, and also astrology counseling for couples, which can be very beneficial for people who do want to work on their relationship, no matter how long they have been together. And then I also work with energy, as you have heard, and some of it includes crystal frequencies, and some of it includes Chinese traditional medicine, and then some of it includes Tesla frequencies. And a lot of people are now interested in those types of healing. In some other places, you can find the information about Tesla waves as being presented as scalar waves. Tesla talked about them as non-Hertzian waves. And this is something that I do without the presence of machines, without any technology. It is just accessed in a specific way and then transmitted to a person. Those sessions work on all the levels of being, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and the results can be quite instantaneous in some cases, once again, depending on what we are talking about and what we are looking at. But a lot of people have been posting testimonials, so you can read about the experiences of others on my website. So make sure to check the testimonials if you have any questions about how it is experienced by a person and what kinds of results my clients have experienced. So
That's
if you want to hear anything
beautiful.
else, just go to the website.
I love that. And you guys should all go to her website. Like I said, the link is up above, and sign up for the newsletter. And then you'll get the monthly report, and you'll be reminded every month that you should be calling Brana and scheduling a session, just in case at the moment there's a lot going on, but you'll get a reminder every month with some great information. And then, oh yeah, that's right, I should call Brana. Oh yeah, that's right, I should reach out and schedule my session. I am super, super grateful for you, Brana. And I know with all of the stuff going on, we had been planning a big event.
Yes.
And I don't know that things are going to happen right away, but we're still going to do it together. And
Yes.
We will be speaking in person with two other beautiful, beautiful people here in the Virginia area. So I'm going to keep everyone posted on that. You are certainly welcome to travel in for that from anywhere. We're all going to need a little vacation after this, that's for sure. And this is a great place to come and visit. So I'll make sure I keep everybody posted on that. I'm so grateful for you today, Brana. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, reach out to Brana. And if you'd like to give us some parting words of wisdom, that would be just lovely.
Love yourselves.
Perfect.
That's all I'm going to
Perfect.
say. Whatever
yes, you are beloved. You matter. You are loved. And I guess we'll wrap it up. Y'all have a fabulous weekend. And go find Brana. She's doing all kinds of stuff online now, and all kinds of reports. And you can just hit up her page, and she's got all information. Brana is the crystal queen. Let me tell you, she knows so much about crystals, y'all. So I know a lot of my people love crystals. So definitely go over there. She's got amazing information for that. And I would stay on with you for hours, and I think an hour and a half is our cutoff point. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful, everyone. Have a fabulous week, and you are loved.
Yes.